Welcome to part 2 of my kitchen refresh series. In this video, I finish up the rest of the kitchen projects. The area I'm most excited about for this kitchen refresh is this wall here. While I do like the copper molds hanging on this wall, I've always wanted to mix other elements such as transferware, maybe some baskets, just to make it a little bit more interesting. So in order to do that, I needed some sort of a shelf. And that's where this comes in. I was able to buy this shelf from Facebook Marketplace this weekend for $25. I'm not crazy about the heart motif, but it's not a deal breaker because I can definitely just put something on to cover it, like a plate or maybe even one of the copper molds. And the seller advertised this as a beige distressed finish, but it's actually not really beige. It's more like a taupey green, which I'm fine with because I do like that sagey green color. So this is going to go on this wall. I'm going to be using as many of the copper molds that I can, but then also introducing some other elements. I'm going to have my husband help me with the hanging of the shelf because I think where the hanging hooks are, the distance between them is probably not going to line up with any of the studs on the wall, and I do want the shelf to be secure. Not that I'm going to be hanging really heavy items on it, but regardless, I don't want there to be a chance of it falling. Overall, the shelf is in good condition. The only thing that I had to address was these little, I think they're called buttons, the wooden buttons that cover the screw holes. There were several missing. Actually, there were 7 missing altogether. So I just bought some from Lowe's, and I'm going to finish covering the rest of them. I haven't painted them yet. I think I can get pretty close to this color. So that will be what I'll be doing next. The shelf is finally up, very sturdy. It was surprisingly hard to find a shelf like this. I looked for several months on Facebook Marketplace. I was able to find several of them, but they were usually 1.5 hours to 2 hours away from me, and I didn't want to drive that far. So I just kept checking every day, and finally this one was listed only 45 minutes away from me for $25. So I immediately contacted the seller and we arranged to meet, and here it is. So now that my husband has made sure that it is securely on the wall, I'm going to start styling it with some of the vintage items that I've collected from around the house. Here are some of the items that I've gathered. Of course, I want to incorporate some of the copper that was originally on that wall. So some of them will go on the shelf, others I'm going to distribute throughout the kitchen. I like to have repetition of the same elements in different parts of the room just to give it a more cohesive look. I also have some white ceramics and stoneware. I have, of course, the iconic Dundee marmalade crock. I think that will be nice to put some flowers on one of the shelves. I also have some transferware, a little pitcher, some teacups, and I have a little wicker or rattan wrapped bottle. And then I also have some candles. So I'm just going to start arranging. I'm sure it will take several tries to get the look that I'm looking for, but this is the fun part for me. So I'm really looking forward to it. For this little server, I'm going to keep it fairly simple since there's so much going on the shelf. I'm going to start just by putting this really pretty embroidered runner that I bought for $1 at a church sale. And that has the blue, which repeats in the blue and white transfer wear, which I think is a nice touch. I've been storing some of my white ceramics in the home office because I didn't have space for it in the kitchen cabinets. So I thought it would be really helpful if I could find another shelf to put in the kitchen to display those items because they are pretty enough to be out on display, and it's not really convenient for me to have to go and get them from the office every time I need them. So I remembered that I had this shelf in the laundry room, and I thought this would be the perfect size to put here in front of the island. It wouldn't block the flow of traffic around the island, but it has 3 good size shelves that I could use to display a lot of these items. I'm going to use the existing valance to take the measurements for the new one that I'm making. I love these tension rods because they're inexpensive and they are an easy way to attach a curtain to most areas without actually having to make holes on the wall. I'm using this floral chintz fabric that I purchased probably 15 years ago. My local Calico Corners, I don't know if you remember that store. We had one in my area and they closed about 15 years ago, and they had all of their fabrics 70% off. So when I saw this fabric, I was immediately drawn to it, which is unusual because yellow is not my favorite color. It's not one of the colors that I gravitate towards, but it had these other beautiful shades of pink and burgundy, has some blue in it, has some green, and I thought it was just the perfect English country fabric. I bought 5 yards of it at the time, not really knowing what I was going to do with it. But over the years, I have used it in so many projects. I've made curtains, I've made cushions, I've reupholstered chairs with it. So this just goes to show you that if you really love something, you'll always find a use for it. My husband gets very nervous when he sees me with a hammer and nail in my hand. When I'm hanging things on the wall, my favorite method is just to eyeball things. I rarely measure, and he's an engineer, so everything has to be very precise for him. Which is why anytime I have to hang something on the wall, I wait until he's at work. I finished the kitchen and I'm thrilled with the results. The showpiece in the kitchen for me is definitely this wall shelf. I love having a place where now I can mix in different elements, different little treasures that I find when I'm thrifting, and I just know that I'm going to have so much fun styling this for every season. I'm already getting ideas about what to do in the fall and for Christmas. So this was the best $25 I have ever spent. I kept the top of the server very simple, just with the tureen and the floral runner. But again, I can change this up every season. I can add more elements to it when I want to change the feeling of it. this little shelf is also a great addition to the kitchen. It allows me to store some of my most used white stoneware, and on the top shelf I'm using that to keep my onions and my potatoes. I know it's not suggested to keep onions and potatoes together, but we go through them so quickly and I've never had any problem with it. And this is also an easy way for us to, when we go to the grocery store, just take a quick glance at the basket to see if we're running low on one of these items. So this works really well for me here. The kitchen table I've kept very simple. These are the placemats that we use for our meals inside this basket. And then I have this blue and white vase. And currently I am displaying some faux tulips. Believe it or not, these are faux, but they look so real. Look at the texture on the petals. I love using these here because they give that really nice pop of color in the kitchen. And I think pink and blue just look so pretty together. The coffee station I shared with you in last week's video, and that's remained pretty much the same. I did add some baskets to the top of the refrigerator, and those are very helpful for storing appliances that are not used very frequently, or some dishes, special occasion, things that you don't have to reach for very often. I did add these 3 blue and white transferware teacups to the back wall. I thought it was a good idea to add a pop of blue here as well, since I had it going on the wall shelf. For the area next to the stove, I switched out the little tray that I had holding my olive oil and vinegar and condiments for a larger, sturdy one. And for the area above the stove, I used some more of my copper mold pieces, and I'm also using that area to display my 2 pig cutting boards. I had 2 more copper pieces left over, so my cow mold went above the kitchen sink, and then I hung the fish one on that little narrow wall. I thrifted this ceramic blue and white candlestick holder, and I thought it would be a nice addition to this wall. This is a narrow wall, so I really didn't have space to get very creative with it, but I just wanted to add a little bit of decor to it. I also thought this area could use a little bit of greenery, and this is the perfect place for it because I get a lot of sunlight through this window, and it's especially nice to have some pretty plants to look at while I'm doing the dishes. On the other side of the sink, I decided to hang these 2 baskets. I like the texture that baskets add to the kitchen, and these are actual baskets that we use. You can see from the signs of wear, and I think that's perfect because you don't want your house to look like you live in a show home where everything is pristine and perfect, and signs that items are loved and used just adds to that overall cozy vibe of a home. I was able to organize the area around the microwave, which was a big cluttered mess that I had to deal with. I was able to put many of the items in this little cabinet. The charging station is still here, but that's really the best place for it. So I think it overall looks 90% better than it did. So let me know what you think about my kitchen refresh. And are you planning on making any changes to your kitchen this spring?